Welcome to Lost Without Japan, a travel podcast about the life-changing experiences of exploring Japan and those moments we would be lost without. For your listening pleasure, allow me to introduce your very own Kanko Gaido, Michael.
Welcome to a special Lost Without Moments bonus interview episode of the Lost Without Japan podcast. Our bi-weekly podcast is focused on getting you to Japan for your first visit or to make that next adventure to Japan even better than your last. Today's special interview episode with Remi from Japan Tour Adventure will cover a variety of services that will help give you a truly unique guided adventure, some of which will help you even burn the calories you're consuming while you're exploring some unforgettable stops for various food that, upon looking for pictures, I'm super jealous of, Remi. It's like super jealous. This is your Kanko Gaido for TKIC Studio Productions, coming to you with hopes and dreams of a return to travel for listeners of our show in 2022. And for himself and his son in summer 2023. Now, Remi, I don't know if you know, but we have listeners that are, from the United States and from Australia. But we also have listeners from within Japan. And for those of you listening from Japan, for you that have friends that are Japanese or Japanese speaking, or just looking to practice English, Remi has some very unique offerings for you. So this might be a podcast that you want to share with friends. Would you agree with me, Remi?
Absolutely, Michael.
Oh, thanks for hopping on today, my friend. I greatly with it. I am so legitimately excited. I was on your website when we had first messaged back and forth with each other, a lot, those first couple days, looking through. And we're going to make sure you don't miss something, too. So I'd like to thank you all the listeners today, for giving me a bit of your time. And I truly hope that this podcast finds you in a good place or on the path to a better one, no matter how it may seem at the moment. My belief is that we could all use a beacon like this in our lives to help guide us during these times. And my hope is that Japan, along with this show, will become that for you. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a returning Lost Without listener, thank you again for your time and for returning once more. For today's show, let me introduce a special guest from the website JapanTourAdventure.com and supporting YouTube channel Japan Tour Adventure, Remi. I must say, Remi, I am so thankful for Jeff from Rediscover Tours and Rediscover Japan, introducing you to me so that we could be on the show today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's also a very big privilege to be here, and I hope I can help a lot of people getting to Japan in the near future.
I agree. And your voice is made for podcasting, my friend. I'm gonna have to watch out. You're gonna have your own one, and it's gonna be taking my place. So I truly feel fortunate to have you, Remi, join myself and listeners of Lost Without Japan. And it's not just because of that SAKAI tour that I could be booking through Japan Tour Adventures. So welcome, Remi.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, we do have the SAKAI tour, but it's not the only thing we do have here. So as much as I can, I'll try to explain everything we do, how we do it, maybe make some decisions easier for people willing to travel to Japan in the near future, and answering all the questions you might ask right now or in the future from the website.
Excellent. And really, before we start going too deep into the episode, where can listeners go to take advantage of your services or to ask some additional questions when they're looking to book their next trip? What are your websites, social media accounts, things that people could reach out to you with?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Well, first of all, of course, you have our official website, JapanTourAdventure.com, when we offer all our products generally. You can also contact us quickly by email going through the website. We're also available on Line, the Line app, which is actually mostly famous in Asia, not really in the States or in Europe. But you also have WhatsApp. We do have the number for WhatsApp if you want to contact us directly through a direct message. And of course, we are listed on all the major OTAs, experience and traveling providers such as Tripadvisor, Expedia. We're also very present on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, many other places such as even Rakuten Experiences. Recently, we've been approved as an experience provider.
It's awesome.
But I have to say that if you can, guys, anyone willing to book with us in the future, I would rather have you booking through our direct platform because it makes communication so much easier. And also, we actually don't have to give any commission to any middleman to introduce us to you. So it's actually better for us and for you, probably.
Yeah, that's a long-standing thing for our show where it's like, people are struggling so much right now everywhere in the world, with the economy and things of how they're going. And if we can make sure that the people that are providing either your lodging or your experiences are getting the full amount of what is being given to them, it's better for everybody, because at the end of the day, I want you and others, I want you there, because I'm going to be there with my son. And we're already talking about a couple experiences where I'm like, man, Remi, we're going to need to talk after this because I'm going to have to set some things up for you as well for when we come over. But I agree with you 100 times over. Remi, this next part is really, it's about you and how much you want to share and what you want to go into is completely up to you as well. You can talk about yourself, your company, the role, how you made it to Japan, how you have a business in Japan. I mean, all these things that I'm going to be taking notes as well as you're talking, and we'll go from there. And for all of you, as always, don't worry. Links and websites for Remi are always in the show notes. So if you're driving right now, keep driving. We'll have it for you. Okay. So, but Remi, go ahead and share about yourself, my friend.
Sure. Thank you. Well, first of all, my full name is Remi Lopez. I'm from France originally. My father was Spanish, and I came to Japan for one very big reason. Two reasons, actually. Number one, I wanted to speak Japanese, and of course, you cannot really study a language efficiently unless you go to the country where they speak. So for Japanese, you had only one choice. I couldn't go to Korea for that, even though you have a lot of Korean who can speak Japanese because a lot of customers go there. But yeah, I signed up as a student for a year visa. And after that, I tried my best to find a sponsor who would hire me to give me my first working visa, which was much harder than I planned because officially I'm from France and I started to work as an English teacher. Because of that, the very first time when I applied as a English teacher to get my first working visa, people at the immigration office looked at me like I had cancer or something to give me bad news.
Yes.
But you're French. Why would you teach English? And okay, that was a very big shock to me. But finally, I got it anyway, and I started to work as a teacher. I started to make a decent living. After a year of studies, I could get a very decent Japanese level. Of course, the reading and the writing were not at the same level because when you interact naturally every day, this is the best way to learn how to produce Japanese verbally, not really on the paper. But still, it does the job. Quick piece of advice if you want to learn Japanese. It's good to learn the theory at school, but then for the price of a beer, go for 3 hours conversation at the bar. That's the best school in the world.
I can see that, Remi, and that's been something I've been thinking about too, because I have so many times tried to learn Japanese, and I got to feel that being immersed is the best way to go. And I'd love to have it be where I was finally financially independent enough to where I could just, instead of doing that summer school that I'm doing right now, is just go to Japan and, possibly work for a friend or, do something while I'm kind of there, but just have those interactions and go from there. That sounds like a huge leap. And I didn't know if you know this, Remi, but it's crazy because you had that issue where they're looking at you like you have three heads. And now I'm hearing that language companies are actually like beginning to drift from native English speaking and having to be from a certain area. And now they're actually like, hey, being a native English speaker doesn't mean that somebody can teach English. Like,
it doesn't make you a teacher at all. It makes you a good speaker, though. But I ended up giving advice of grammar advice, actually, English grammar advice to a Canadian when I was still a student in Japanese school. So that's when I realized that they don't know how to use it. They just do it because it comes to them naturally. But then when it's about explaining it, they were doing some of them were doing research because they didn't have a proper teaching license, and they usually didn't study English as a proper subject at school. So they don't know the rules. Yes, which actually is different for non-native because we had to learn it as a foreign language, so we know the rules better than native speakers. But we don't speak better than them as we don't sound as native as them, obviously.
There's more than one reason why I teach art, my friend, and not English as well. So, but like, that's a big jump, though, still, Remi. Okay, so you go to Japan to learn Japanese, which I like, hats off to you. But then how do you get to the point of where you're like, I'm going there to learn Japanese, but now I'm wanting to stay and start my own company? That's quite a shift. Yeah.
It was a big leap, yes. I decided to take it because when I knew I was going to graduate from my business school and the company that was employing me told me that it was like a late 28, they knew. They told me they couldn't give me a job because the economy was freezing and going really bad. So a lot of people were going like in quick retirement, faster than planned. And they said, Remi, we have a lot of work to do and we would like to give you a job because we need you, but we cannot produce an offer because we can't afford it. So I knew I wouldn't be able to stay working for this company. So I thought, well, I'm now single. Another sad story, but that's not really related. I have no strings attached in this country besides my family and some friends. I decided to sell my car. I took my laptop with a few stuff in a bag and a suitcase, of course. I gave my dog to my father, who was really glad to take care of him. And I decided just to go because I thought, well, if I have to do it, it would be now. Otherwise, I might be stuck in my routine and a new life, a stable life in France, and I won't be able to do it anymore. So I decided to do it and absolutely no regret. But yeah, it was a long journey, especially as a teacher, because I had to break all the stereotypes of French being bad at languages, which is kind of true everywhere, probably, if you don't travel. I had to learn Japanese in a very short time, especially I had to keep up with the Chinese rhythm, which was very unfair because they all know the kanjis, the Japanese character that are from Chinese originally. Yes. So I had to work double because they all knew that already and I didn't. So it was very hard to keep up with them. To stay in the school, which is the main reason why I stopped, because at some point I knew it was just about kanji absorption and remembering and practicing, and this I can do it on my own time. I don't have to keep up with the Chinese, which was crazy, insane speed. And was it like...
And was it like, so like you're going there to study, and then you have like these job offers where you're like, the economy at that time, like, we can't offer you something. I might as well take this leap. Like, that's like quite inspiring as it is, for there. What is it that like got you to stay? Was I like, you were going from the very beginning with an intent, like, I'm going to Japan to live. This is where I'm going to like have a business. Or was it like, I'm going to learn a language and see how things go?
My original project was to go to Japan to learn Japanese, and as a professional project would be to work for a company in Japan, but from France, a French company who has a branch in Japan. So I could go back and forth to Japan from France, hopefully with the company paying for that. And I would be able to live with the two countries I really want to live in, which is France and Japan. But my motivation started way before that. When I first signed up for the business school during the interview, I told them I want to learn Japanese, I want to work in Japan. That was many years before I decided to go to Japan. And they told me, well, we have a Japanese option, so you can learn and get some basis, but we cannot guarantee because we need a minimum of students signing up for the option to justify hiring a teacher. The first year, not many people were interested, so I couldn't get that option to be taught. And the second year, I decided to take it on my own, and I gathered some signatures, and I went to the administration. I told them, look, I've got enough people. You can hire a teacher. Yeah, Mr. Lopez, bad news. We had the teacher, and we saw you were motivated, so we actually took the first step and contacted the teacher we hire when we need. But she's pregnant and might go to maternity leave in a couple of months. So unfortunately, we cannot hire her right now because she's going to have to leave soon. So I spent my whole business school period without Japanese option, and I couldn't study Japanese with a teacher. But from the beginning, that was my project, to work in Japan with connection with friends. But quickly, I've met people in the train or with different contacts in a bar. French people from the company Panasonic, which is a huge brand and like everywhere in the world. I met them from French branch in France, and they came to Japan to visit. And I saw that they were all fitting the stereotype of the salaryman. The salaryman, for those of you who don't know, everybody listening to the podcast, this is just a guy waking up at 6 a.m., eating his granola, getting on the train at 7 a.m., getting to the office at 8 a.m. Yes, 1 hour commuting in Japan is a very regular time, even more sometimes. Working until he has nothing to do, and staying even if he has nothing to do because the boss hasn't decided that he's going to go home yet. And once the boss is going home, they say, finally, I can go home. But usually it's sometimes like around 9, 10 p.m.-ish, and maybe more. And then, because of all the stress, all the pressure, because of work, they go for a few drinks, they get drunk, they go home, they take a quick shower, fall on the bed, wake up 5 hours later, and do the same thing all over again. And that's something I did not want to do.
I completely agree, my friend. And I wish, there's a couple things that I do differently, but I wouldn't give up my teaching job for what I'm doing with my art and things because of that same thing. Like, I want to be there for my family. I'm fortunate that I can be there. My dad, who is a huge inspiration in my life, was that, person to where he was traveling constantly to provide for my sister, myself, my mom, like to do all of this. He was gone. I don't know how he did it. And he would like arrive back for my coach. Like he'd drive multiple states to get back and coach my soccer, to flip around, to go back out. Like he never stopped. And it meant the world to me, especially having my kids now. And I'm sure your kids are going to look at you in the same way with everything that you kind of do. Even if it's not salaryman, like all the effort I can tell just from like this initial conversation with you in our past ones, like you do a lot, and I'm sure this is noticed that's here. But like it's great. And you go through all of this. Now, was it meeting your significant other that got you to stay, or was it like when you were there, you decided that this is a country not only to kind of have an experience, to where I could kind of go back and forth from France to here. What made it to where you're like, this is going to be my business, my home? Like, what led to that?
So before opening my business, I decided to give it a try in the teaching business.
Okay.
So I was hired by a dispatch company that gave me my first full-time job as a language assistant teacher for public schools. That's what we call most commonly ALT.
Yes.
And everything went really good. The money was decent. I wouldn't say amazing, but very decent, especially for what I was doing. And after that, I just were very happy with my result of what I was doing, and they started to trust me more and more and give me a better job. And I realized that even if you don't have a teaching license, like I don't, if you really do your best for a few years, people start to trust you and give you just what you need, what you want, because they don't want you to leave. So that's what happened to me. In 2014, I found a company that really trusted me, gave me everything I wanted, even a better pay with better working conditions. And also, it's not just about work. It's about the fact that I found my wife in Japan. We got married in 2016. We had our first kid in 2015, which was a huge struggle with paperwork. My advice, get married first to avoid any complications. because Japan always do it with by the book, and when something doesn't respect the book, oh my god, it's a nightmare. But after that, I was approached by one of my friends just in 2016, who had his own guided activities business. For the record, if you guys are looking for like a nice activity on the bike, you have Cycle Osaka, and you also have Cycle Kyoto, two different cities, the two major cities in Kansai, very worth visiting. And unfortunately, most people just go there, don't know exactly what to do besides the main landmarks. So if I have an advice to give you guys, just book a tour with them, because I've been trained to do that as well, and I'm doing it as well sometimes. And it's great. My God, you see so much more on the bike. That's amazing. And starting working with them in 2016 for friends, we just trust each other. We don't have any contract. We just do it because we all know each other and we appreciate each other and we trust. That's the most important. And about 2 years later, I had my big day. The wedding, takes a long time to organize an international wedding because I had people coming from different countries. And in July, August 2018, before the big day, my family and friends came from France to visit us and to stay until the wedding and then to go back to France after. So for that occasion, I wanted to do something very special. So I was still working as a guide in Kyoto and Osaka and also as a teacher, but I wanted to do something for my family and friends coming, and I organized a few days trip to Hakone. I don't know if you know Hakone.
Yes. But that's on my list of things to hit when I am no longer a tour guide myself, but I keep on bringing people over to Japan for their first time. So yes.
Yeah, Hakone is an amazing place, especially for the onsen, the hot bath. You can go on the top of a kind of a sleeping volcano with like very sulfury water when you can boil your own eggs and the eggs turn black. That's a nice experience to do. So I wanted to organize it with everyone, but also I wanted for my first time as well, and because my friends might not come back to Japan anytime soon or maybe never, I said, okay guys, who is motivated to climb Mount Fuji? And surprisingly, I had more than half people doing it. It was great, but we struggled with so many differences, so many information that were updated very late, and I couldn't get the new information, and I had to adapt myself like a travel agent, like a guide, and I was in charge of a group. That's my first time doing it on my own time, not professionally, just personally, and I loved it. I loved the pressure. I loved dealing with all the struggles. I loved, I had to improvise. I had to find a backup plan for a few things, and I had to do my best. So I was rewarded with amazing smiles in the morning, and also very tiring faces, but it was a good sign. So after that, I just had something happen in my mind. It's like, oh my God, I want to do this on my own. I want to do this on my own time. I want to do this as a job. Why not being paid to do something I love?
Yes.
I found it really quickly that I didn't want to be a salaryman. I didn't want to wear the same suit every day and going, stucking myself in the train to get off to the next station where everybody is going to get off as well, and it would be a nightmare. I didn't want to do office hours. I decided that my office would be outside, would be in the forest, in the city, everywhere that would take me. So I started to use my diploma, to use my master's degree, and I did a market research. I did all my homework, as you can say, and I decided to open my first activity, to create my company, to open my first activity in Nara city for good reasons. Nara is actually one of the most interesting and one of the richest city in Japanese history, because you have to know that it was the very first capital of Japan, actually. Further than that, you also have, to me, the best harmony between city and nature, with all the deers roaming freely in the city. It's an amazing experience. It's so lovely. Even just going just to see that, it's amazing. And I already had my friends having their activities in Osaka and Kyoto, and I didn't want to interfere with their business and to keep the good connection. So I decided not to open any activity in Osaka and Kyoto inside the city. So I decided to go for bike tours in the first place because I love that. and I invested a lot of money in very, very good top quality bicycles, cross bikes, to have the best deal between city bikes and road bikes, kind of a hybrid. And after that, I just decided to go for marketing and signing up for OTAs, and Tripadvisor gave me my first customer. It was good. I could guide nearly 100 guests in 2019 because I opened the business in May 2019, and the tours started to roll in July 2019. So I got my first guest in July. That was very quick, which was a good sign. And I quickly had to train some people. So I trained a few people so they could start doing the tour for me, because I was still teaching and I was still working very hard in Osaka and Kyoto for my friends. So I was very, very busy. And I started to think, okay, where else can I create good activities? What you have to know is that every activity I create them in a way that I would like to do them myself. In 2011, when I first came to Japan as a student, I got on the bus tour and I got off halfway. I couldn't keep riding the bus with all the groups. Like, that was a nightmare. So I did not want to create those kind of experiences when you spend most of the time riding the bus with strangers. Just, okay, you can get to know each other, but it's not what it's about. What it's about is discovering the country. It's not just spending your time sitting in a bus and looking outside. Oh, wow, it looks pretty. Too bad we can't stop. I decided to create the bike tours because you can cover a lot of ground in a very short time, much more than if you walk, and you can stop any time you want. You say, oh, even if you have a guide, say, hey, guide, excuse me, can I stop there just for a few minutes? I'd like to take a picture, or can we go in? And if it's not a problem, sure, let's do it. That's kind of a power of adaptability and flexibility I was looking for.
Yeah. So you weren't just looking to be somebody that makes sure people are wearing their masks while they're being guided around. You're like, and you're not just looking to have it be like like you're a trip to Disney or something like that, where you have everybody on that set rail, and it's just being set through. You can't get off the ride. You can't do anything that's there. If you don't get the pictures, you drive by. You're out of luck, or you can't stop. When I'm looking at all the pictures that are on your site too, and the things that you're offering, I can totally tell that is not your style at all. And I am truly excited to be able to share that. And if you are not driving, please go to the website and begin to look at it while you listen to Remi go on here a little bit more and just share what they have to offer, because it's just it's truly something worth looking into.
Thank you. The third thing I try to make it special as well is that I don't want to go to hit just the main landmarks, as I said, and to go to where everybody goes. What I wanted to create, and that's one of the very, very big interest about this kind of tours I created, is that I live in Japan, so I could take all the time I needed to create strong connections with local people, so they would trust me. Because maybe you're not familiar with it, of course, but Japanese mind, they are very, very private people.
Yes.
I wouldn't say narrow-minded. It's not the same thing. They just like to be left alone. And before welcoming foreigners, especially when they're not specifically like tourist attractions, they would like to know people before doing anything and before welcoming anyone. So it took me sometimes even months, and for SAKAI City, which I will talk after that, it took me almost 2 years to create a very strong connection. So the person in charge would trust me and would agree on me bringing people to their place, which is not meant to be for tourists, but which is much more interesting than any tourist attractions I know in the area.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And then being able to do that in in person, face to face, that's also a huge deal to the Japanese as well. And you're right, like the 2 years, happy to have it. Hopefully you've made some friends, or those connections led to other connections for you as well.
So yeah, it took us about 2 years to create a very strong connection with the very special partner we found in SAKAI City. And we created actually those new tours in Sakai City and Suita City in late February. And then, of course, the COVID happened and everything went down to zero. We were very, very excited about that period before that happens, because we opened less than a year before, which was very short. And in that short time, thanks to all the guests we could guide, essentially through Tripadvisor and a few direct bookings, we became, in Nara City, the only place we opened activities so far. At that time, we actually became number 2, the second most important outdoor activities provider on that platform, which was a huge accomplishment. And I was just very motivated and excited about creating more activities that I would do myself and hopefully it would work as well. So yeah, I was really interested in creating new activities in different places, but COVID happened and I had to, slow down because the finances were going down as well. So
yes.
I had to put a hold on everything. And hopefully I would have time to do it myself from my office. But for many things, such as creating connections, you cannot do it from your desk. You have to move and you have to pay transportation. You have to spend countless hours and money just to go there and to create those connections. So that's why also probably it took 2 years. It would have taken maybe less if I had more financial freedom.
It's something I wish to. I think we all do, because if I could just be traveling constantly or have some sort of art studio in Japan and travel from that's my dream for one day. It's there. And I'm super interested even more as you're beginning to set these things up. Was it those adventures in Japan that further attracted you to Japan? And I know you said biking is part of the things that you are enjoying also. What is it about Japan beyond, meeting your fabulous wife? What was it about Japan that was this is where I want to be?
Yeah, you mean what first attracted me to Japan, essentially. But that's what really created my first interest about Japan. And also after studying Japanese culture, my interest changed a little bit. In the first place, of course, when I was a kid, I'm from that generation, born in the 80s, when I grew up with all the Japanese animation, among other things of City Hunter, Dragon Ball, and all stuff like that. We should not forget about Ghibli, which is an amazing animation studio. And I was just fascinated, not just because of the anime that was exciting and quite violent for some kids in the 80s, but still quite good. Now, I was fascinated by the imagination that Japanese had to create such amazing stories. Sometimes they were borrowing from different culture, like Saint Seiya is actually from Greece. All the mythology, the zodiac sign, everything is not Japanese technically. But Ghibli is 100% Japanese because Ghibli focuses on one concept, a human that goes against the flow and never goes with it, and nature, where everything goes together, and human is the only species that doesn't want to go with the flow and just do its own way. So it's a very interesting, once you understand this kind of concept, respecting nature and spirit, and human doesn't want to do that, so at some point you have a clash, and that's what usually happens in Ghibli. It really got me to think that kind of a culture, that kind of country was very interesting to see from the inside. So I also studied on my own Japanese philosophy with how samurai were thinking about life, about living their life, what kind of precept they would follow during their whole life. And I read some complicated books that I still don't get fully, of course, but that was very interesting. And when I was in business school, I did write an essay on Japanese philosophy and how to apply the old samurai philosophy concept in a modern society. And my teacher, when he read that, my management teacher, he said, "Remi, when I read your essay, I don't just think that you like the topic. I think that you really want to see it on your own. So my advice, go to Japan." That's the first advice he gave me after he read my essay. And I told him, well, I didn't wait for you for that, but I need some money and I need some skills first.
Yes.
So here I am. I'm trying my best to make it happen. So yeah, he could really see that I was interested in not just talking about Japan, but going as well.
And then with all of that, I mean, like, you can see that you had interest before you even left, but now you are in Japan. You've been there for a little while. You're raising a family. What still excites you the most about living in Japan?
From a family point of view and person living here, what really excites me the most about Japan is the fact that this country is extremely respectful of everything. And that's something I would not be able to get back in my home country. I mean, I'm sorry, I love my country. I'm French and I love France. But Japan has kind of I'd say magic working every day that you can't really explain unless you're Japanese. Some things that Japanese do, you would feel like that's not possible. People cannot be so nice, but they are. And that's also a double-edged sword. It can be extremely positive, but after a few years living in Japan, and because it's a big and speaking Japanese as well, it turns to be something quite annoying sometimes. So at the very beginning, you get to Japan, and of course, I could not speak English perfectly, but I was good enough. And the problem is Japanese don't speak English very well either, but they try their best. Of course, they couldn't speak French. I mean, who would in Japan? And I couldn't speak Japanese. So even though I couldn't speak Japanese and they could barely speak a few words of English, they were trying their best to help me. So which was always great. When you travel for the first time, don't be afraid of speaking English with very simple words to a Japanese, because if they just remotely can, they will try their best to help you. That's amazing.
I see you like taking this at some point in time, Remi, and see you booking tours for people that want to go to, France and that are Japanese from Japan, and just being like, be able to, running back and forth with it. Because if I was going to pick anybody, and I had a few friends that were in Japan and they always wanted to go to France. Like, that's like a common theme of things that's here. Maybe that,
I know, right?
Maybe that business that you're going to have is going to become like this international one, and I'll wave at you as you're, flying by in your private jet one day. But it's like, one other thing, like with you being there, I love to ask people, because not everyone is as into a pork cutlet with curry as I am. They have their own favorite foods. What are your favorite foods in Japan? And what places would you, if you're going to pick a place to visit for a snack, what is Remi's top choice?
All right. So my favorite food, besides sushi, which I love, I'm a foodie. Something you have to know about me is that I'm a foodie. I don't eat one thing because I like it. I'm eating one thing because I found the best place to find that kind of food. I do have favorite places. For example, as I have a very sweet tooth, and I can tell that Japanese have amazing sweets. It doesn't really fit everybody's palate, to be honest. You have what's called mochi, which is kind of a rice cake, which is kind of a jelly rice paste.
Yes.
It's not for everyone, but myself, I love the red bean paste mochi, which is called a daifuku. So you have the daifuku with the red bean paste, but you also have the mame daifuku with the red bean paste and full beans mixed inside the rice cake. It's usually sweet, but I found that some places, very local places, they don't expose everywhere. They don't sell on the regular shop. They're very small, local, and they move from one place to another every day. So it's kind of a chasing to get my sweet. They also make the red bean paste that is sweet, but they dip the beans in salt mix, and then they integrate it to the mochi. That makes a very great mix of salty and sweet snack. It's so good. The balance, the breaking with the salt and the sweet in your mouth is amazing. It's way better than just sweet. You also have the melon bread. Yes, that you must be familiar with. It's called melon pan in Japan, and at the very beginning, it used to be designed like a melon with melon cream, but they created that more and more just to be a sweet bread, very basic one for kids, for bread to be extremely sweet and very easy to eat from all the kids. You get a huge volume of bread for snack because Japanese burn a lot of calories usually at school, all the kids. And I found, after countless tries, countless shopping in different places, I found the best bakery that offers the best melon bread, which is damier bread. Looks like a proper melon from the outside, green, and inside you've got cantaloupe, so Hokkaido style melon, which is the orange melon inside, with melon cream and real pieces of melons inside. The taste is just mind-blowing. It's like biting inside a melon. It's so good. And unfortunately, this bakery has only 2 shops, and both in Tokyo. So usually once every 2 months, that shop exposed in one of the department store in Osaka. So usually when I see them, usually as a coincidence because I cannot have their schedule, I buy like 5-6 and I freeze them. And I defrost them anytime I want.
Remi, when you're not just being a dad and shuttling around, what are your go-to locations to visit in Japan?
Well, I'm a nature lover, so I wouldn't say cities because I've been to Tokyo, I've been to Osaka, I've been to all major cities. And if you don't want to be mixing with all 1,000 tourists around, Kyoto is probably not the place to go unless you've never been, because it's something to do once. But as I said, I love nature, and that's the reason why I created my first activities in Nara, because more than just the city, I love just getting on my bike and explore the surroundings, the forest. It's just magical. Of course, if you don't have a bike, it might be quite hard, but they also have a few very good historical hike trails, which is very easy to do in one day, and they are so well organized that you can actually start the trail from the city walking. And then once you get at the end of the trail, you can hit an onsen to relax. And the city has a bus taking people from that place, bringing them back to the city center, so you don't have to walk your way back. So it's very well organized and really good and cheap, actually, because, yeah, you walk. But besides that, you have also Takeda Castle. So Takeda Castle has been designated just a few years ago as the Japanese Machu Picchu. It's a mind-blowing places to see. It's interesting to go there, but the scenery you can see from the other mountain, not the mountain of the Takeda Castle, but the opposite mountain, where you can see the visuals of the ruins with the clouds just above ground level. It's gorgeous. And that was west from Osaka. Nara is more east. You also have Mie Prefecture, slightly further east after Nara. That is one of the key places for ninjas. They have great activities, ninjas centers and museum. And north of Osaka, I would say, of course, besides the obvious Kyoto, you have a place called Tottori. And Tottori, you have the sand dunes.
Yes. I've seen pictures of that, and that looks amazing too.
That looks amazing, but I don't recommend to go during summer because it's just so hot that even the sand burns your feet. So I would recommend to go between basically between October and May. After May and before October, if you care about your feet and want to walk without worrying about having blisters, don't go there. But it's really good. They even have camels that kids can ride. That's great. But that's all about Japanese culture. If you miss, like me, if you have some homesick sometimes, surprisingly, you do have a lot of places based on different countries. You have, and I'm sorry if anyone from the Netherlands who's listening to this podcast, but they have a place called Huistenbosch. It is very gorgeous at night. The light show is amazing. The hotel looks like a proper building from Europe with the inside as well, like a little bit of 16th, 17th century, really beautiful. The breakfast is mind-blowing with a lot of cheese. Of course, I'm in Netherlands. And it's fun. You also have Spain Mura, the Spanish village. So a lot of stuff like that, because Japanese are fascinated by other cultures and they try to bring them back to their own country. So if you're a bit homesick, you might find some things that you might like, even if you're still in Japan. I haven't seen French village yet, but I'm still hoping for it. Hopefully affordable.
That for me was, I've said this on, I feel like almost every podcast, but my homesick moment was Hiroshima, and being in Chicago, one of the things we're known for besides pizza is hot dogs. So being able to have a hot dog at Good Time Funari when I was in Hiroshima was like that little bit of homesick remedy that I needed at that point in time, and left me just enjoying my trip. So I bet living there, like having those places, means even more to you now.
But on a more personal matter, because I don't have time to travel every day, as you know, I have a job. I am also very busy with my own company, managing everything, marketing, and I have a family and kids. My place to go if I'm a little bit homesick, or if I want to buy something, I wouldn't say unusual, but something that reminds me more of my place in Europe and Western culture. Well, good you're from Chicago, because thank you, America, for bringing Costco to Japan.
Yes.
Nothing beats, a big pizza from the food court for an affordable price, and a big piece of Parmesan from Italy that you can actually buy very easily there.
I said that is very true. And that's one of those things, like being there, I would have to have a Costco membership. Mine just might be a little bit further down the line, but I'm going to keep that as a note recommendation for myself one day, too. That sounds wonderful. Yeah,
better than Universal Studios or Disneyland, man. Costco is my personal amusement park. When I go there, I spend way too much money, but it's always worth it.
I like that. And Remi, I know you've been in Japan for a while now, but you being a tour guide, I think provides, like with your business and adding all these different tours, and we're going to go into some other things a little bit later that you're doing as well. You're doing so much. But if you were going to give a travel hack or hacks for Japan for someone like myself, like that hasn't been to Japan before, or even myself where you've been a few times, like what would they be?
Okay, so you have actually three different things. Two of them are about transportation, because as you know, transportation is not very cheap in Japan, depending on what you want to do, how often you want to do it, and where you want to go. And also one very important hack that most travelers must be aware of, but not everyone think about it. Number one, to be able to get some advantages as you're a tourist, so you're not Japanese, always get your passport with you, or if you don't have your passport with you, it's fine, but take a picture of your passport and put it in your phone. Why do I say that? It's because, of course, when you go shopping, you can get the tax back, of course, and you can, save the taxes when you get to the airport and get the money back. Everybody knows that, and most people know about it. But also when it's about visiting places, a lot, and I mean really a lot of places that are not located in the top touristic sector, some less touristic places provide some advantages, discounts, and sometimes free souvenirs, gift, or access to non-Japanese people. But even if you look Caucasian, of course, it's obvious that you're probably not Japanese, but they will need the proof. So if you just even provide a picture of your passport, for example, in Nara, you have Yoshikien, which is a great garden, and I chose to include in the highlights bike tour because originally Yoshikien was providing free access to any foreigner with a passport to prove they're not from Japan. At the very beginning, some people actually forgot their passport in 2019 when I still had a guest. And when they forgot the passport, I told the staff, listen, look at them. They're not Japanese. They don't speak Japanese. They're not from Japan. They said, I'm sorry, sir, but without the passport, we cannot let them in for free. So I had to pay for their access. But if you do have your passport on you, even just a picture, and they see that the country is not Japan, you can go in for free. And many sites offer those kind of bonuses for non-Japanese people just to attract more travelers in order to boost tourism in the area. So that's one of the hacks. Always get your passport with you, or at least a picture if you don't plan on going shopping, because the passport is very important for the taxes. But it's also very important to get access to more for less.
And that is a great recommendation, especially as things open back up and we can travel again. That is huge. That is definitely huge. And one of the things I like to ask as well, and I know it's kind of hard, Remi, at the point that we are right now, while we're still waiting for like a full reopening of Japan, but what advice could you give to someone who is looking for employment eventually, like with your company or maybe similar companies, what would your advice be, Remi?
Well, indeed, it's a tough question, and especially in these kind of situations right now. But first of all, I would say get your Japanese level to a point where you can handle a very complicated conversation. Because in my domain of expertise, as not just as a business owner in Japan, but as a guide, we expect people to speak 2 different languages at least, which is English for all the guests, because this is the global language and the easy way to communicate with guests. But Japanese is also extremely important, because if anything, and I mean anything, happens, from a man needing advice to buy a souvenir to maybe someone broke their leg walking on a bad stone and just twisted their ankle, cannot continue the tour, or get in trouble with someone by bumping someone, or maybe on the bike, can happen. Someone doesn't pay attention and hit someone and injure someone, and that's a big deal, of course. The very important role of a guide would be to be the link between those 2 cultures. So you need the English for the guest, but you also need a very good level of Japanese to be able to handle any conversation and deal with Japanese locals, as well as police if anything happens, the ambulance, the hospital, anything to make the transition between those 2 cultures as smooth as possible for the guest, and to avoid any complication and any hassle that could hit any international traveler who doesn't speak Japanese. That's your role, to make it just easier for everyone.
And that's huge. I could see that 100 times over. And Remi, now that we have a little bit about yourself, more than a little bit really, but I'd like to move on to Japan Tour Adventure.
Sure.
And have you share a little bit more about that. One of the first things I like to ask just is, if someone's reaching out to you, Remi, and they have one thing they can do with you, and this is their first trip to Japan, do you have kind of a go-to for them? And then on the flip side of that, what if you have someone who's been to Japan multiple times and is looking to do something with you? What would you recommend for them?
That's a great question. Well, if it's the first time, you don't want to miss the main landmarks, of course, because you want to see what everybody's seen and why people say it's so amazing. So, for example, as I said, I do not do Osaka and Kyoto, because my partners do that, of course, and they do it really well. And Cycle Osaka and Cycle Kyoto. But for me, I would say that Nara, which is still an acorn, but it's growing really quickly in terms of tourism. So if you guys want to travel to Japan, I highly recommend you to join us in Nara before the business explodes and that Nara becomes the new Kyoto, and I hope it will not, to be honest.
I could see that for sure, like where it's like, yeah, like take advantage now. I said before, you don't want it to be to a point to where it was just that sea of people, you can't get around anywhere, and it's just huge tour group after huge tour group. Yeah,
exactly. Sure. And most people, I mean, a lot, not everyone, but a lot of people are also interested in Japanese knives, because the Japanese cutlery is extremely famous all around the world. The most famous chefs all around the globe use Japanese knives because it's just extremely well made, great quality, very solid. And I think also the reputation of Japanese knives is not to question anymore. Everybody knows how good they are. So unfortunately, I had the unpleasant experience to be also victim of tourism industry. Let me just develop a little bit. The thing is, I bought a knife for my dad many years ago when I was living in Japan, and I had no idea where to go, of course, because that's my first time dealing with Japanese knife shopping. So I ended up going to a place where people actually knew us in Sakura, Osaka with my friend, and they welcomed me. It's okay. We speak English, Japanese, French, German, any language you want, probably we have it. It's great. It's amazing. And I found a great knife. Oh, wow. It's really good. Oh, it's a bit expensive, but it looks so nice. I bought it for it was almost like $150, basically, $150. But it was so well made, so well balanced. For the knife size and everything, you expect something to be quite heavy, but it was extremely light. It looks so amazing. So I bought it and I gave it as a present to my dad, who loved it completely. He tried it a few times and said, oh my God, it's so good. And a couple of years later, when I started to create my business, I started to discover more about the Japanese knife business because I created that very good partnership with Kikuichi Company in Nara. They have a history of over 750 years old. History is mind-blowing. They even made, during the Kamakura period, over 700 years ago, they made a katana for the Emperor of Japan. And in 1920s, they made a katana on demand for the heir of the throne of England.
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't remember who it was. It was a man who was going to become the new king of England, and in 1920s, and he came to Japan and he asked them, "Okay, can you please make me a katana?" So they did it. That kind of a high quality image. You cannot fake that. This is just an amazing quality. And in that shop, I found the exact same knife. It wasn't coming from Kikuichi when I bought the knife back in the days, but it's exactly the same features. The 3 layers, petty knife, like 12 centimeters blade with an western slightly red handle, really beautiful craft. And I see the price and I started to feel, oh my God, this is just insane. The one I bought was $150. The one I had in front of my eyes were $50.
Wow. Yeah. 3 times as much.
3 times as much for good reason. Is that you have transportation, you have middlemen, you have also the extra cost for, providing like a multilingual staff, everything. Of course, it makes sense. And if you don't know where to go, if you don't have any contacts, those kind of places are amazing for people willing to buy knives. But then you realize that you could get 3 of those knives for the same price if you had the right contacts. And that's just crazy. So in Nara, I still, because I love this kind of place, I still take my guests on both bike tours to Kikuichi knife because they're just so nice, and they deliver the knife directly from their factory to the shop where we go. So there's no middleman. There's just a tiny price for delivery, the extra cost, and that's it. Absolutely no extra cost, which is why it can be that cheap. And as I said, in 2020, I started to create the connection in SAKAI where people can actually go to a proper knife factory. So I don't even take people to a shop when they buy. I take them to the place where they receive the blades from the blacksmith, when they sharp the blade, the raw blade, when they make the final product with the handle and the blade, and they can actually make a knife on demand in front of you if you want. And for that, the price is just so crazy for an amazing top-notch quality.
And I don't know how much we've talked a few times before this today, Remi, and I think every single time we've talked, I brought up that knife, adventure experience, and I don't know how many people I've told. I've told my dad, I've told my friend, Josh that travels with me, told my buddy Mike. Like that's one of those things that just so unique. For me, one of my favorite things that I did was I got to blow my own glass and make my own glass that I still have in my cabinet behind me. And that was one of my favorite things I've ever done. But to have something that not only is just going to sit in a case that I can look at and remember my trip, but actually have something you could use, like that's huge. So huge.
Exactly. I stopped a long time ago when I go traveling somewhere to buy something I would just expose on my living room, something that would just collect dust. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really useful. But a knife is always a great piece of craft. It's a great souvenir as well. And it's something very convenient if, and I say if, you learn how to treat it correctly. Because I've seen people just ruining Japanese knife because you don't sharpen it the way Western people do it. You have to use the proper stone. You have to use not very sophisticated technique, but you must learn the basis to know how to treat it well. So if you treat a Japanese knife well, it can last you a lifetime. You will never have to change it unless you get tired of it. And for that, I developed the tour around the knife, but not just the shopping. It's not a shopping activity. Shopping is optional. It's not what you're signing up for. You explore the unknown the unknown side of the knife industry, because you go from the sharpening station to the main office, you see local people working like you're not even here. They're not going to pay attention to you. You just observe how a Japanese factory is working daily. And we take you upstairs to the meeting room where our guys who were trained professionally by the knife factory staff to teach you in English how to sharpen a knife if you decide to buy some knives, so you know how to treat them nicely once you get home.
Huge. That's huge. I mean, that in and of itself is something you could just, pay. I don't know how much I'd pay for it, but that sounds like, definitely an add-on. So besides Gareth and his, bicycle tours that he had in Osaka that I'm going to have to be a part of, I'm like, I'll be reaching out to you, Remi, for next summer. There'll be at least 2 of us coming through to try to book that together with you. And that's great.
I'll be waiting for you, Michael, and I'll be very glad to welcome you in person.
Love it, my friend. And besides those recommendations that you've had, what are some of the most popular tours that, when we had this tourism going and things are going again and again and again, what were those ones that seemed to have like that biggest request, like, hey, I have to do this?
Yeah, well, the biggest request is definitely the Nara Highlight Bike Tour that we offer. That's actually the very first product, and for good reason is that because we cover all the main landmarks, and we know that's what people want to see in the first place, but we also stop at more local places, including the Kikuichi knife shop, so people have a different vision of what Nara is about, not just Todaiji, the Buddhist temple, and the big gates, and Kasuga Taisha, the shrine. So we cover the main landmarks plus a few extras, and we do like in 3 hours, maybe 3.5 hours, we do what most people do in one full day walking. And then at the end, people don't know what to do and where to go because they don't know what to do. They don't know anything about the surroundings of the city. So the second most popular tour is still in Nara, and it's called the Heart of Nature. This tour focuses on just leaving the city. Just the word tourist is the word you will never say during this tour, unless, no tourist. That's the only time you're going to hear it. We take people to the forest of Kasuga Taisha. Kasugayama Forest. Kasugayama Primal Forest is one of the very rare forests. It's not a place, it's the whole forest that is now a World Heritage Site in Japan. And you have some mind-blowing places that were, I wouldn't say hidden, but forgotten, even by locals. And most people don't know where it is because they forgot about it. And I've been taking people a few times. I've done some trial tours as well. And more recently, from Rediscover Japan, I took Jeff on the tour because he found me on the internet and he was very interested in, creating a partnership. But he said, Remi, I would like to take one of your tours because before putting you in our database and recommending you to our customers, we would like to have a trial and see how you do it. So, of course, I said, I will welcome you anytime, just let me know. And he came one day in Nara, and I told him, you've seen the landmarks more often than probably anyone around here, so let's just do something different. I will take you on the Heart of Nature. And it is slightly more physical than usual because Nara is quite hilly, but also you go cycling in the forest on a proper trail, so it's not concrete. You must challenge yourself a little bit because you need a bit of stamina, but it's also very rewarding when you're done. And you see things that you will never see again. Even if you live in Japan, most things I'm taking people to, most people don't even know where they are. So it's a rediscover of the Nara area as you see some things that you didn't even know existed. And it's very, very nice.
It's huge. And Jeff, I know, spoke highly of you and was super excited to get us in touch. And I could tell when he's excited, that says a lot to who he's introducing to somebody, because I'm sure it's not everybody that he's doing that for. So I'm truly thankful that he reached out to you and that we get to talk today. And
well, so am I.
Me too, buddy. And one thing I have, though, that I've gotten the most from doing this show for about a year now is that I've been to Japan numerous times, and I got to this thought that I don't need a guide, Remi. I've been to Japan multiple times. I have been a guide for others. I had 7 friends come with me. I helped show them around. But from doing all these interviews, I've been missing out a lot. What are some things that a listener might not expect to see or experience when they actually explore Japan with a guide?
Well, the word guide is quite confusing sometimes. Many people think that a guide is the person welcoming them at the airport and staying with them 24/7 during their whole trip. So a guide like that, I would say, if you're organized and if you like to travel on your own, is not necessary. What you need to make sure that you can see as much as you can in a very short time, and you will not miss on the most important and most famous places, but also you will have the chance to explore some, I would say, more unknown places. I would say off the beaten tracks. Is to hire. It's not to hire a guide, but it's to sign up for an experience that would take you where you did not expect. So also that would take you where you could not go on your own because you don't have the access. For example, the Heart of Nature, you need a proper good cross bike with very strong tires. And if anything happens, the guide has everything for you to be covered. We have spare tires, spare tubes, everything, first aid kit. We are covered. We cover you the whole during the whole experience. So if anything happens, we are here for you. We are the assistants. That's also very important, especially if it could be a little bit dangerous in the forest, for example, as you don't necessarily have a signal on your phone as well. So it could be quite hard. So we're here for you here. For the Knife Factory, as I said, it's not a shop. So besides us, nobody else can go inside the building to get those kind of experiences and to get the chance to create your own knife to observe. I mean, if you show up at the building and say, hello, we would like to see your knife, people are going to say, well, go to the shop. It's a few hundred.
It's right down the street.
Exactly. Leave us alone. We're working here. So it's not going to work. That's what I've tried to create from the beginning, especially because of what you just said. I don't need a guide. I've never hired a guide to show me around in the country. But after creating this kind of experiences, I understand the fact that I don't need a guide, but I don't mind signing up for an experience, providing me gear, equipment I wouldn't be able to get on my own, and access to some places that I wouldn't be able to get to, even with my friends, if I don't have someone to open the door for me. So that kind of for that kind of reason, I sometimes sign up for experiences to make sure I get the best out of my trip.
Yes. And that's a huge deal, too, because that's part of why my son and I didn't apply to go this summer. I don't want to be in a group like that. I don't want a babysitter. And I don't want someone that tells me where I have to go and eat and, all of those different things that are there. But those experiences are exactly it. One of those experiences that is on my list, too, that's outside of what you provide right now, but I hope it's still there when things open back up, was an experience where I could go make my own jeans. So it's kind of like the same thing with your knife. I could actually go make my own jeans and then bring those home with me.
Oh, wow.
That's an experience I'd sign up for as well. Your knives are going to be a part of that. It's like, beyond my baseball games that I'm looking to go through. It's just, I see this being a couple of days that are going to be a part of what I'm doing. And like you said, you're going to get the most out of that time you're there, especially if you're limited. For a lot of people, they may end up in Osaka. They may end up in Tokyo. They may end up in Kyoto and have very limited time outside of that. If you're going to do that, make the most of your time. And I definitely see you doing that. And are there any limitations or group size restrictions, age restrictions for your tours? I'm assuming some of them do have, some sort of age restriction on them. But what are some restrictions that might come with those experiences?
Yes, absolutely. There are a few restrictions. For example, for the bike tours, we do not accept young kids, like under 14 years old. we have designed a very specific tour for families with young riders or for kids who cannot really ride a bike, so they can actually ride with the parents with a child seat that we can provide for free. With electric bike in one of our partners in Nara city, for example. In SAKAI city, we have the same kind of tours with regular city bikes or electric assistant bikes, and we can also provide child seats for no extra cost, so anyone can sign up for a private tour families so they can the best time even with kids on the bike tour. For the walking tours, there's no many limitations because it doesn't require any specific skills. In Nara, the craft beer and sake walking tour is even kids friendly because it's not just about drinking a lot of beers, of course. It's about testing a new food and exploring the very local, touristic, almost touristless area of Naramachi. And the kids pay less because, of course, they will have their own food and drinks. But because they don't drink alcohol, obviously, we give them a discount. Even the knife factory is wheelchair accessible because even though we have to go to the third floor in the very small building of the knife factory, they have a small elevator. So even in that situation, we definitely can accept people with wheelchair, no problem.
That's huge. That's huge. And being able to provide something for everybody is great in that regard. Now, with, I admitted something that you pointed out to me too, listeners. Hey, I went to Remi's website a few times. I for large chunks of time checking things out, but I missed a portion of it, my friend. When I was looking through, I did not click on one of your tabs at the top, and you pointed that out to me like, hey, Mike, did you notice this? What is that I was talking about? Like you have, because
that one.
I think it is definitely easy to miss.
Yes. So we have, because of the pandemic, we had to innovate a little bit in terms of tours, and because of my quite now long experience as an English teacher, I also worked in the Eikaiwa business. If you're not familiar with the Eikaiwa designation, it means English conversation school. So it's not about teaching English, but it's about helping people using English so they would get some more skills and they would become more fluent. So the concept of the Eikaiwa is to sit at a cafe or a small office, face each other and asking just regular questions to make people comfortable with the routine questions, listening to them, try to correct them a little bit, maybe including some grammar structure so they would be able to use a more sophisticated English level next time, and just to make them talk. We are sometimes we can be considered as a very cheap shrink because they talk about their own private life and they want advice sometimes. That's a bit weird. But this business has been flourished for the last 15, 20 years easily. Very, very, very flourishing. And the problem is there are a lot of limitations. For example, you're always in a very friendly environment with someone ready to listen to you and to wait until you can build your own sentence. So there's actually no real life pressure. It's not a real life situation. It's cheating because you practice, but you don't practice in real life. You practice in an office with someone paid to wait for you to say what you have to say. So what we decided to create, we called it Eigo Tour. Eigo means English in Japanese. So the concept is simple. With a series of documents, people meet the staff of Japan Tour Adventure, get the part 1. They need to use their cell phone with an internet connection. Nowadays, everybody has a smartphone, so it's not really a problem. Internet connection, working speakers, and hopefully a decent camera, like an iPhone 4, iPhone 5 is enough usually, because you have to take a few pictures as souvenirs, and also you have to scan some QR codes. We included some QR codes in the book, so what is written in the book, you can at the same time listen to it with your phone because we have an audio file. So at the same time that you're reading, you can actually listen to it for the pronunciation. It makes it easier for you to understand. You can also watch videos about what you're supposed to learn about. Then you have to answer a few questions for your own knowledge, for your own education, to know if you understood everything, if you remember everything about what you just learned about. Then the second part is where the wall must be broken. You start producing. You stop listening and writing a little bit. You start producing on your own when you have to stop strangers on the street and ask them a few questions. Not very complicated question, but it helps you breaking the wall of shame from failing. The fear of failing is very strong for Japanese. And usually if they don't speak a decent English, they're so afraid of failing that they don't even try in the first place because they don't want to be embarrassed. And unfortunately, that's a very common behavior from Japanese. So in the second part, you really break that wall and you take the first step and you ask some people in English a series of very basic questions, and you have to write the answer, and you take a selfie with those people you interviewed as a proof. Then you visit some very local places where people were specifically chosen there because they can speak English. So you will not be able to interact in Japanese, but you also can interact in English the whole time. And finally, you will do some challenges such as origami, that we're making a souvenir that you can take home, actually. You can try some costume and take amazing photo shoot in sumo costume or kimonos and stuff like that, or fisherman costume as well. If you want to go for a role play, I don't know what you want to do. And you can also have a very fun calligraphy challenge to write your name in kanjis as a foreigner, or as a Japanese, write a foreign name, a foreign word that was adapted in Japanese using kanjis, but most Japanese don't know about it. So it's very challenging for Japanese as well, Japanese people. This activity is great for two categories of people. Number one, the main reason why we created it in the first place is Japanese people who are willing to challenge themselves with friends, with families, as a team, to go from one place to another and to complete the tour on their own. The second category is specifically targeting actually travelers who don't want to have a guide 24/7. As you said, it's annoying, specifically if you want to go walking, you don't risk anything or almost nothing. You want to take your time. You don't want to watch your clock and, spending only 10 minutes there, 15 minutes there. No, you want to be free. And for that, you can actually do that activity as a group and go everywhere in the book. Plus, you're free to stop anywhere in the meantime. You can do whatever you want. You can add anything extra you want on the way. All you need to do is to meet the staff at the end once you completed everything. And it doesn't matter what you did in the meantime, what extra thing you did will be there waiting for you. Of course, we have a time limit, but this tour takes about 3-4 hours to do. And we give people 6 hours so they can get the best out of it and explore further. Even though it's not in the book, they're free to do whatever they want, because with a phone, they have Google Map. All right, our next stop is there. Oh, in the meantime, in the middle, there's that place. I want to go there. Sure, feel free to do it. You're completely free to do it. You don't have to watch the time too much. And you're basically semi-assisted. It's not entirely guide-free, because we provide the documents and we're here for you to assist you, but we don't stay by your side non-stop to watch you. You do whatever you want.
And that's, like you said, the difference between a guide and providing an experience, and you're providing just a second experience for sure with that. And just like your experiences that you offer, are there a limit to the size that these groups can be, or a minimum for these type of tours? Well,
these tours are very different because, as I said, they are semi-assisted, so the guide doesn't have to stay with the group. And because you do it by team, you meet the staff at the very beginning, but then you're on your own. So there's not really a limit. We set the limit to 50 people to be able to be competitive and attract schools, for example, or companies for, team spirit, team building activities. That's also a very important market for us. And families, tourists with kids who wants just to have fun, to stop by the park on the way. Everything is free to do whatever they want. We limit only one thing: the number of members per team. For example, if you're 10 people, we will not provide only one document. We will ask people to split in 2 teams. I would say one team would be usually let's say 6 people maximum, usually 5-6 people average. So if you're a 7, I would say, yeah, let's try to keep it like 4 and 3. But if you have young kids inside, they're not counted as members. They can just get along, ride along with you, walk along. So in that case, of course, like 5 adults and 2 kids, okay, let's keep one team. It's all right. But if you're like, I don't know, 6 adults and 4 kids, yeah, okay, let's split 3 adults and 3 adults and let's put the kids with them. So it's going to be better. And it's going to be more challenging because everybody's going to go to the same place in the end. So you might meet each other on the way. You must have fun. And it's becoming more challenging as you want to beat the other team. That's also kind of a fun part because it's not just a semi-assisted activity. I would say it's kind of a mix between exploration, scavenger hunt, and quiz about the place you visit. And as I said, because we carefully chosen every places people are going to stop by, they can also speak English. So you will not be lost in translation, which minimizes the risk of, needing a guide.
And even though that's my favorite movie, Remi, Lost in Translation, that's not how you want to be. And providing those experiences, huge, like a great idea, especially right now. And even going forward, because I feel like with anything, once you break that first barrier of starting to do it, I see that something somebody would want to repeat and then just be more comfortable, not worrying about failure, being that you're in kind of an assisted, safe environment when you do so. So that's huge. That's huge. And one of the things when I was checking out your site, I saw the books that are also a part of this. You have one that is, like published, printed, and you have in hand, and another that's being worked on. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. As I said before, Nara was the very first places we created our activities. So we focused on Nara because we created our activities in the first place there. And Kikuichi Company really liked, I would say, my dynamic behavior, my energy. And they said, Remi, do you plan on staying in Japan? Well, I'm creating a business here. I'm not planning on going home every weekend. I'm going to stay here. Yeah. I'm living in Japan. So, all right, would you like to maybe be introduced as a member of Board of Tourism of Nara City, which is a huge opportunity, especially as a foreigner. So I am now actually, I would say in poor parley, to be a board member. And it's going to take months, maybe even years, because they have to check everything for the company, for my background on personal level and professional level as well. It's going to take a long time. But Nara is definitely the first place I'm focusing on to be able to make everything official, especially for the Ego Tour, to have the marketing resources to be, promoted as a nice activity for Japanese people. We have the second activity going. It's still on the make because it takes more time. It's in Kyoto, where we don't have any proper connections yet. And surprisingly, Kyoto is probably one of the most, even maybe the most touristic city in the country besides Tokyo. Surprisingly, they're not really interested into creating partnership with foreigners, even if it could provide them more business, especially with Japanese people themselves. We don't wait for people to come back from overseas, but they're not so interested. So we're now struggling to find the last partner, but we're not giving up. We're still trying our best. And the third book that is not on the make yet, but we are just discussing about this, is in SAKAI City, where we have the bike tour and the knife tour. Where we were already able to create some significant connections with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of the city. And we also have a connection at the City Hall. So very soon we have a meeting planned to go there and to introduce the concept of Ego Tour. And we will just ask them, are you interested in creating this kind of activity for schools and companies and maybe future travelers in SAKAI City? If yes, we will really hope for a nice gesture, hopefully financial, to help us, because it takes months to create, to design, traveling, exploring the city to choose the best places, to gather all the information, and for the editing, to create the books and the design takes like countless hours. For the first book, it took nearly a year and a half because we are starting from zero. So it does take a long time. And if I want to take time to create a new book in a different city, I would rather have some support from that city. That would make sense.
No, for sure. I think for both of you, because then it's a vested interest for both groups. And let's hope, Remi, maybe when I come visit next summer, we can celebrate, those partnerships and you being recognized for both of those things. And that would be fantastic as well.
Yes, hopefully.
I know right now for everybody, COVID's that biggest challenge that all businesses and companies are facing right now. What are some other challenges that you are facing right now? Is it mainly just like you said, those projects and trying to get the Ego tours going? What are the challenges you're facing right now with your company?
Well, with my company, the main challenge is not creating new tours, but it's creating new tours without any support. The problem is now Japanese borders are officially reopening, but they're reopening with a huge condition, which is hiring a guide 24/7 to follow you. It's also very expensive because you have to pay for the guide. The government doesn't. So this is an average of $350 a day to pay for the whole guide fees. It's not something that everyone can afford. I mean, can you imagine just for 10 days, you would have to pay an extra $3,500 just to be able to walk with the guide by your side? And it's not for the interpreters. We heard that it was essentially so the guide would be in charge of watching you and make sure you wear your mask all the time.
So that's where you get back to that guide versus experience. And, I heard some of those, the pricing for some of those groups that have that like full on guide and be told where you have to go and kind of like this is where you're going to be. This is where we're going to eat. This is where you can stay. Not really experiencing Japan. I could go to YouTube and press play on that and not have it cost. I've heard some of these cost upwards of like $20,000 just for these experience. That's not an experience anymore. I said, that's not what I want. I'd rather see that $20,000 actually go to Japan, go to the small businesses, go to these ryokans, go to, you and others and actually provide, a reason for people to stay and not look to leave.
Yeah, the biggest problem we're facing right now is that even if Japanese has reopened and you still have the problem with the guide following you and cost much more than you pay for the whole experiences, the problem is that you can only have this kind of connections if you're licensed and if you work close with the government. So because of that, only very big actors in the travel agencies business can get something out of it. Most companies, independent entrepreneurs and small scale companies don't really have a lot of requests or don't have just the contacts to be part of it, such as mine. So this year in March, April and May, we had a few bookings coming from people living in Okinawa in the US base. And some people living in Tokyo willing to travel around Japan, but to get the best out of their weekend. So they booked an experience with us. And they were thrilled. They were absolutely delighted. I love their attitude, their mind. Even though they've been living in Japan for years, it was just an amazing experience to get back on the bike or to walk around with technically local people. They live in Japan, but they've never really visited the deep area where we are doing our activities, and they were just so happy they could do it. So that made me feel very confident for the future reopening of the borders, because if people living in Japan enjoy our activities so much, people who don't live in Japan are going to get just crazy about it. It's going to be just amazing. But because of Japanese borders reopening behavior right now, it's absolutely impossible for us to get anything out of it. And we just have to keep up with that. We just have to keep working, to keep paying our charges, our rent for the bikes locations. We have to keep those connections with all the locals very strong. So we have to come back regularly to say hi, to have a few drinks with them, and to just, take care of those relations, because it's very important for us and very important for the future of our tours. But everything, like some hotels we have to stay in, because some places are quite far, like 2 hours, 4 hours round trip. when you have kids, not easy. You don't spend enough time in the city, so you stay for one night. And all those charges, we pay for it. I pay for it. And unfortunately, because I'm a small-scale business, Japanese doesn't support me anymore because technically they reopened the borders. Even if people start to travel again with big travel companies, they will literally run out of experiences they can do because all experiences providers have shut down. And that's going to be a big deal if they keep behaving this way.
And for me, like, Japan is one of those experiences where it's like you're going, for me, halfway around the world. And I think a lot of people that are going to Japan aren't going to Japan to look to be in a huge tour group. Like, you're going to Japan to actually experience what it is to be in Japan. Besides, like, reaching out to you, Remi, and Japan Tour Adventure, and like my request is, like you said earlier, to go directly through you as opposed to necessarily where, like, for our stays and things, not going through booking.com when you can book directly with a location. What are some recommendations that you would give to someone who is looking to plan their next trip? What are some recommendations you would give?
So what I would give as advice, I would say two things. Number one, please join us. That's the first thing. Come to Japan Tour Adventure because those activities were created by me, essentially, because those are the activities I would have loved to do as a traveler myself. That's the reason why I created them in the first place. That's how I created it in the first place. Like, from a traveler point of view, that's those kind of activities I wanted to do. The second thing I would happily share with you guys is that transportation is a blessing in Japan. Everything is so well organized and you can get so much out of it. So if I have an advice, and if you're worried about your finances, don't take the JR Pass. I would even say don't take the JR Pass, or if you do take it, use it wisely. The JR Pass is kind of a very limited time, all you can ride pass on the Japan railway line. And a lot of people just think about the round trip Osaka or Kyoto, Tokyo, and that's it. Don't do that. If you get there, sure, but then you have a few more days to use it. So keep using JR to explore all the surroundings, even the deep countryside. And if I have the best advice to give you from a transportation point of view, number one, if you don't have the JR Pass, go for the night buses. They're very well organized, always on time, very cheap, like a quarter of the price of the Shinkansen, and they ride at night. So you actually travel while you're sleeping. So in the morning, even if the sleep can be quite rough because it's a bus, you have the whole day to start exploring the city where you just arrived, and you don't waste time in transportation. The second one, if you want to travel daytime, or even if you don't travel daytime, but you don't want to use the JR Pass just for Shinkansen, the bullet train, and for one quick way to Tokyo, my advice, get off the Shinkansen, get off the bullet train, get on a local train. And it takes days, if you want, days to reach Tokyo, but you can stop in many places on the way, hitting many local stations, booking in small ryokans, small local houses, guest houses, and explore a very different side of Japanese culture, countryside, and you can discover so much more in the middle than just hitting the main cities. A friend of mine did it many years ago, and actually it took him 3 or 4 days to do that because he chose to stop at different places. And at every local line, he was nearly hitting the terminal station, the final station, and he was staying for one night at the small places he could find on booking.com or places like that. He reached Tokyo after 4 days, but he spent 6,000 yen in transportation instead of 12,000 yen for one Shinkansen ticket, which meant that he saved 6,000 yen and he spent an average of 2,000 or 3,000 yen a night in hotels and small guest houses and inn, which means it cost him barely 2,000 yen extra than the Shinkansen to have 3 or 4 days of experiences in the local Japan. That's priceless to me.
Remi, and that's my goal. Like, I keep on going back to introduce people to Japan, and I keep on going on trips with them. It's my favorite place in the world. It is my happy spot. In about 13 years, 14 years, I will be in Japan myself finally. But taking my son next summer, we're going to be hitting those different spots. But I like what you're saying, and I like that getting off, especially on that return trip with when it's myself. Just myself, where I'm going to be going back, and I won't have to take anyone to Kyoto. I won't have to take anyone through Tokyo, and it's just me. That sounds like an amazing trip, and not having that cost of a JR pass at that point in time, that's huge. And that is money I could put towards elsewhere, and you're still getting where you're going, and then I'm seeing what I want to see, which are those places in between. So I love that recommendation, Remi. That's fantastic. Fantastic.
My pleasure.
It's like, we still have a little bit more of some recommendations and things, but we're kind of nearing our end here, my friend. Are there anything, discussion points or continuation of anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't covered to this point?
Let me think. Well, for all our activities, and especially when you travel, I think it's obvious, but always wear comfortable clothes and shoes, especially when you're on the bike or walking, because you walk for miles and you don't want to have some pain in your feet, otherwise it's going to just ruin your day. That's very important. And also I would say that compared to other countries, you have to know that transportation is always on time in Japan. Yes, even buses, that's crazy. So for the trains, make sure that if you have the train leaving at, 7:22, be there at 7:21, and you still have about 30 seconds before it takes off. So my advice, I know it's going to sound ridiculous, but set your watch 2 minutes in advance to make sure you will not miss the train, because if you run late and if you look at your time, you see it's 22, you still have 1 minute and you can go for a quick run to catch the train and you will get it.
I had one friend with me on my trip that learned the hard way that I told everybody, I said, hey, trains don't wait, and trains that say they leave at 10:30 means that train is left the station. Like, it's going. There's not, I'm stepping on because it's 10:30. It's like, train's gone. And he was running right behind us. He could have used your 2 minute tip because he had to board the train behind us. We all got where we're going. We're all, grown-ups and stuff like that. But that's a nice recommendation as well, Remi.
Yes, thank you very much. There's actually one last thing that I would like to tell everyone willing to book an experience with us. As I mentioned in the very beginning, we are listed in most OTAs in the market, including Tripadvisor, Get Your Guide, Expedia, and many, many, many more. The thing is, those guys take sometimes actually a big cut. And to help everyone, we'd rather give some good discount to our guests instead of paying for a middleman. So if you guys are willing to book through our platform, feel free to have a look at the description of the episode that Michael is recording with me, and you can get 10% discount on any tour anytime you want. And we did a very special thing besides that for our returning guests. When you finish the first activity, we will give you a very nice card with a QR code that will take you to a very exclusive page with the photo archives, where you can get all the pictures that the guide took during the tour. Within 24 hours, the pictures will be online and you will be able to download them for free and, keep your memories. And also, you will be able to access a very special coupon page. Those discounts coupon can be applied based on different conditions, but you can get up to 30% off depending on how many people you are and when you're coming. So as I said, we are willing to give you more discounts if it means you're going to book through us directly, because I think everybody's winning this way. And also, for a more Japan to Adventure side matter, we also give on that page all the links of OTS, Tripadvisor, Google, Facebook, to support us, to follow us, to recommend us to other people. And if you really like what we're doing, please feel free to put a big 5 stars on it and to write how much you enjoyed our activities and we're just going to be thrilled to read everything about what you did with us.
And Remi, thank you so much, my friend. That is huge for everybody. Everybody wins. And I can't wait to be able to meet in person and do a little update, possibly if time allows for us, of an audio, our podcast again, while we're there updating how things have improved for everyone at that time. And also maybe even give a bit of a audio, bits and pieces of, me making a knife and leaving with all 10 fingers. So look forward to it, my friend. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Beyond everything we talked to this point, I kind of want to get back to yourself and your site again here for a moment.
Sure.
And for you, Remi, what are the goals for both, your site, yourself, Japan Tour Adventures for kind of what we have left of 2022 and then beyond?
Yeah. So I have two main goals. Number one, because now we have designed quite enough tour for the moment. I am training more people because I'm just afraid of how many people are going to get back to Japan once all the restrictions are lifted. So I don't want to refuse anyone. I don't want to say, I'm sorry, I don't have enough guys. So I am training myself. I'm training everyone because I'm the only one who knows how to do everything because I designed those tours. So I am doing my best to train a few more people willing to to work on weekends or just even one day a week. It's not a problem. The problem is they must be trained, and it takes time. It takes countless days to do the whole route, to know exactly what to do, how to behave, how to work as a proper guide, how to give people confidence when they ride a bike, even by, with the cars, because officially bikes cannot ride on the sidewalk. They have to ride with traffic. So it takes a long time, and I'm taking also on my own time and money to train everyone. And that I cannot count the time I'm taking, so it's a lot. So I'm taking a long time for that, and my goal will be to get about 10 people so I can split them in SAKAI, SUITA, and Nara to make sure I have enough people to cover pretty much every day possible. Because if we start working because the restrictions are lifted, it means I'm going to have to get back to work for Osaka and Kyoto as well. So I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough resources to cover everything. And worse than having a tiny accident during a tour is to say no to travelers willing to book. Because if the tour is open, we must say yes. And I don't want to refuse anyone because, first of all, they're going to have the bad feeling that we push them away. And the second thing, they might not get the chance to do our tour at a different date. So I do not want to have that kind of situation. And that's for, I would say, hopefully, if the borders reopen with no restrictions by the end of the year. And for the rest, I have a new project of tours that's going to take probably a couple of years to be set. Hopefully less if we have the right things coming at the right time. But if you are even remotely into cycling, you might have heard about Shimanami Kaido. So Shimanami Kaido is a path connecting the main island from a place called Onomichi, which is between Hiroshima and Okayama. And from that place, you get on you get on different bridges that connects you to Shikoku, a very beautiful island, a giant island that is a prefecture itself. It's a very big island. And it's not just one bridge. It's like a group of different islands connected by different bridges that makes it possible for a rider, for a cyclist, for bicycles to ride from Onomichi to Shikoku with no traffic, no stop. You just can explore all the islands and to reach Shikoku within a day. So that's an amazing place. It's one of the top 5 places people usually dream of cycling in the world. So it's very famous among the cyclist community, less known from, by regular travelers. But my goal, as all the rental shops are in Onomichi or Shikoku already, my goal would be to open a tiny place to store my bikes, same as Nara. People would join our bike base in the morning, and we would go on the ride to explore Shimanami Kaido on our own time, with 1 day halfway. We stop halfway in the island, 1 day round trip, then 2 days, 1 night, if we cross the whole thing and we reach Imabari, which is the first city in Shikoku, and then 3 days and 2 nights, because we would explore 2 different cities in Shikoku, including the connection between the 2 cities in the mountain. So we wouldn't stay by the sea. We would explore 2 different dimensions, the sea and the mountain. But this is going to take a long time to set, as we also need partners that we have found, but we are still waiting to visit them because that takes a lot of money to go there and to pay for everything. So far as we are not really supported by the government and we don't have any guests coming, we have to put this on hold.
Remi, I hope nothing but success for yourself and everyone, attached with you, and look so forward to meeting in person, and hope that listeners of the show are reaching out to you very soon to do the same, and before my son and I do so. But I want to thank you again so incredibly much for setting aside time for today, even with a typhoon warning coming your way. Remi is persevering and making his way to us today. So it is super appreciated. One more time before we go today, where can listeners of Lost Without Japan find and support your services from Japan Tour Adventure?
Yes, so to everyone, please visit our website, japantouradventure.com, if you want to learn more about all the tours we're offering. We have also a very strong community of over 5,000 members on Facebook, still Japan Tour Adventure. It's very easy to find us. We have Instagram with Japan Tour Adventure also, but we try to focus more on Facebook because that's where we can really exchange with the community. We have recently invested a little bit of money to start making and producing some better quality videos, especially to show people how the tour looks like in very short videos, so you can have a quick glance of what you can get. And what you see on the video is exactly what you're going to get. So we're not going to lie to you. This is something we've been working on for the last few months. For anyone willing to create a partnership with us, because we think that in this kind of domain, the more we are, the stronger we get. Please join us on LinkedIn, because this is more like a business platform. We have our profile with Japan Tour, and we are open to any partnership proposal, even maybe some influencers who would like to join an activity for free, like Jeff from Rediscover Japan did. If it can give you some great insight of what we have to offer, and if you are willing then to promote our activities because you trust and you believe in what we do, this is something we're also interested in.
Outstanding, Remi. I greatly appreciate you for joining us today, my friend.
Thank you very much. And thank you really a lot for welcoming me in your podcast, because I listened to a few episodes, including the one with Gareth from Road Bike Rental Japan. And I have to say that I really like the fact that you're not trying to sell something, but you're trying to help people just learning more about local actors that are already in Japan, and all kind of they can help people coming to Japan, just even for information, but also to give them some less famous experiences that would definitely change their memories of their Japan trip.
I appreciate it, my friend. I want everyone to come to Japan to fall in love with it and make it something that to be more than a once in a lifetime occurrence. On behalf of Lost Without Japan and our entire crew, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this interview. We look forward to seeing you on board again for our next regularly scheduled episode as we continue our discussion of Japan, travel, culture, and your Lost Without moments. To everyone out there, Ogenki Day. Stay well, my friends.